The stars looked different out here. Captain Derek Stone stood on the bridge of the Aurora's dawn and stared at the viewing screen. They were far from Earth, far from any human colony. This was the edge of known space where maps ended and mystery began. Derek was 42 years old, tall with dark hair that was starting to gray at the temples. He had been a ship captain for 15 years, but this mission felt different. Something in his gut told him today would change everything. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Jake Morrison said from his station. Jake was young, only 26, with bright red hair and freckles across his nose. He handled all communications for the ship. "It's a distress signal, but not from any human vessel." Derek walked over to Jake's station. "Can you translate it?" "Working on it now," Jake replied, his fingers moving quickly across the controls. "The computer is trying to match it against known alien languages." He paused, listening to something through his headset. "Got it, it's Zinthara. They're saying their ship is dying. Life support is failing." Lisa Grant looked up from the tactical station. She was a sharp woman in her mid-30s with short black hair and dark eyes that missed nothing. "Captain, we're not supposed to be here. This sector is Zinthara territory. If we cross that line, we're breaking the treaty." Derek knew she was right. The treaty with the Zinthara was clear. Humans stayed on their side of space and the Zinthara stayed on theirs. But he could hear the desperation in that distress signal, even through the alien language. "How many life signs on that ship?" Derek asked. Jake checked his instruments. 23. "Maybe more. The signal is weak." "Captain," Lisa said again, her voice firm. "Earth Command will have our heads if we start an incident with the Zinthara. You know how they feel about humans. They think we're dangerous. 23 people are going to die if we don't help," Derek said quietly. He looked around the bridge at his crew. Paul Harris, the chief engineer, was watching him carefully. Paul was a big man with a thick beard and gentle eyes. Karen Phillips, the medical officer, had her hand on her medical kit, already ready to help. "I didn't become a captain to watch people die when I can do something about it." "I'm with you, Captain," Paul said. "Whatever you need." Derek made his decision. "Jake, send them a message. Tell them we're coming to help." "Paul, how fast can we get there?" 15 minutes if I push the engines," Paul replied. "Do it." "Lisa, I need you to keep our weapons powered down. I don't want them thinking we're attacking." "Karen, get your medical team ready. We don't know what condition they'll be in." The Aurora's dawn jumped into faster-than-light speed. The stars stretched into lines on the viewing screen and Derek felt his heart beating faster. He knew this could go wrong in so many ways, but he couldn't ignore people in trouble. That wasn't who he was. That wasn't who humans were. When they dropped out of faster-than-light, the alien ship was right in front of them. It was huge, much bigger than the Aurora's dawn, and it was clearly in bad shape. Parts of the hull were blackened and torn. Derek could see atmosphere leaking from several breaches. "Jake, any response to our message?" Derek asked. "Nothing, Captain. Either they can't receive or they don't want to talk to us." "Life signs?" "Still reading 23, but some are getting weaker." Derek stood up from his captain's chair. "Paul, you're with me. Lisa, you have the bridge? If this goes bad, get the ship out of here. Don't wait for us." "Captain, I can't just leave you," Lisa protested. "That's an order," Derek said. He put his hand on her shoulder. "Take care of my ship." Derek and Paul suited up in their space gear. With them came 2 other crew members, Amy Chen and Pete Sullivan, both engineers who volunteered without hesitation. The 4 of them entered the Aurora's Dawn's small shuttle and flew across to the damaged alien vessel. Up close, the Zinthara ship was even more impressive. It was built like a massive blade, all sharp angles and dark metal, but the damage was severe. Derek could see into some of the interior chambers through the breaches in the hull. "There," Paul pointed, "an airlock that's still intact. I can override the controls and get us in." They docked the shuttle and Paul worked his magic on the alien technology. The airlock opened with a hiss. Inside, the air was thin and smelled like sulfur. Emergency lights flickered in the darkness. "Stay close," Derek said. "We don't know what we're walking into." They moved through the alien ship carefully. Everything was built for creatures taller than humans. The corridors were high and wide. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, probably directions in the Zinthara language. They heard sounds ahead. Movement. Then suddenly, they were surrounded. The Zinthara were reptilian, standing nearly 7 feet tall with scales that shimmered green and gold. They had large eyes, sharp teeth, and claws on their hands. Right now, those claws were holding weapons all pointed at Derek and his team. "We're here to help," Derek said slowly. holding up his hands. He knew they probably couldn't understand him, but he hoped his body language was clear. The largest Zinthara stepped forward. He wore what looked like a military uniform, and he spoke in a harsh, hissing language. His weapon never moved from Derek's chest. "Captain, I don't think they're happy to see us," Paul said quietly. "Jake, can you hear me?" Derek spoke into his communication device. "We need a translation, fast." Jake's voice came through, fuzzy but clear enough. "Working on it, Captain. The computer is learning their language from the distress signal." "Give me 30 seconds. Those were the longest 30 seconds of Derek's life. The Zinthara commander kept talking, his voice getting angrier. More Zinthara soldiers appeared, all armed. Derek counted at least 10 weapons pointed at his team. Then Jake's voice came through again, and this time the translation was immediate. The computer was converting the Zinthara language in real time. "You are human," the Zinthara commander was saying. "You come to finish what your kind started. You come to watch us die." "No," Derek said, and Jake's computer translated his words into Zinthara. "We received your distress signal. We came to help repair your ship and save your crew." The commander laughed, a harsh sound. "Humans don't help. Humans only destroy. Your kind has been expanding through space like a plague. You take what you want and ignore all laws." "Maybe some humans do that," Derek admitted. "But not us. Not today. Your ship is dying. Your people need help. Let us help you." "Why should I trust you?" "Because if we wanted you dead, we wouldn't be here talking," Derek said. "We would have just left you to die in space." The Zinthara commander thought about this. Derek could see the conflict in those large alien eyes. Finally, the commander lowered his weapon slightly. "I am Commander Kreshtar. If you try anything, if this is a trick, I will kill you myself." "Fair enough," Derek said. "I'm Captain Derek Stone. This is Paul Harris, our chief engineer. He can fix your ship if you let him." Paul stepped forward carefully. "I need to see your engine room. Your reactor is failing, right? That's why you're losing life support." Kreshtar gestured sharply, and 2 of his soldiers moved to escort Paul. "If he damages anything, you die first, Captain." "He won't damage anything," Derek promised. Paul left with the Zinthara soldiers, and Amy and Pete went with him. Derek stayed with Kreshtar, trying to keep the situation calm. The alien commander watched him with suspicious eyes. "Why do you risk your life for us?" Kreshtar asked. "We are enemies. My government would destroy your ship without hesitation if the situation was reversed." "Maybe," Derek said, "but that doesn't change what's right. You have people on this ship who need help. That's all that matters to me." "Humans," Kreshtar said, shaking his head. "You are so emotional, so irrational. This is why you are dangerous. Or maybe it's why we're worth knowing," Derek replied. In the engine room, Paul was working fast. The Zinthara reactor was completely different from human technology, but the basic principles were the same. Power containment, cooling. He could see the problem immediately. A coolant line had ruptured and the reactor was overheating. "I need to go inside the reactor chamber," Paul told the Zinthara soldiers through his translator. "The radiation levels are high, but my suit can protect me for about 10 minutes. The soldiers looked at each other. One of them spoke. "That chamber will kill you. Even we cannot survive in there right now." "Then it's a good thing I'm human," Paul said with a grin. "We're too stubborn to know when to quit." He sealed his suit completely and entered the reactor chamber. The heat was incredible, even through his protective gear. Radiation alarms were screaming in his helmet. He ignored them all and focused on the damaged coolant line. Amy and Pete fed him the tools he needed through a small opening. Paul's hands worked quickly, sealing the breach and rerouting the coolant flow. Sweat poured down his face. His suit's internal temperature was climbing dangerously high. "Paul, your radiation exposure is critical." Karen's voice came through from the Aurora's dawn. She was monitoring his vital signs. "You need to get out of there." "Almost done," Paul grunted. "Just need to... there." The coolant line sealed. Paul activated the backup systems and the reactor began to stabilize. He could feel the temperature dropping already. He stumbled out of the chamber and collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. The Zinthara soldiers stared at him in shock. One of them spoke into a... Haven Station appeared on the viewing screen like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. It was massive, big enough to hold 50,000 people from dozens of different species. Ships came and went constantly, carrying trade goods from every corner of the galaxy. This was neutral territory, a place where all species could meet and do business. Derek brought the Aurora's Dawn into dock carefully. The station was crowded, and he had to navigate through heavy traffic. Beside him, Lisa was quiet, her eyes scanning the tactical displays for any threats. "Something wrong?" Derek asked her. Lisa glanced at him. "Just being careful. After what happened with the Zinthara ship, I don't know what to expect." The Aurora's Dawn settled into its docking berth with a soft thud. Derek stood and stretched. They had been traveling for 3 days since leaving Kreshtar and his crew. Everyone was tired and ready for some rest. "All right, crew," Derek announced over the ship's communication system. "We're docked at Haven Station. You have 48 hours of shore leave. Stay out of trouble and don't start any fights with the locals." Jake grinned. "Does that mean we can finish fights if someone else starts them?" "Just behave," Derek said, but he was smiling. The crew filed off the ship in small groups, excited to explore the station. Derek planned to stay aboard and catch up on paperwork, but Lisa had other ideas. She appeared at his door an hour later with a serious expression. "Captain, we need to talk. Privately." Derek led her to his small office and closed the door. "What's going on?" Lisa pulled out a data pad and set it on his desk. "I've been doing some digging. Monitoring communication channels, checking intelligence reports, the usual security stuff. I found something strange. Strange how? 3 alien species have been having secret meetings over the past 6 months. The Zinthara, the Vren, and the Luminari. Normally these species don't talk to each other much. They have different governments, different cultures. But suddenly they're meeting regularly and all their communications are heavily encrypted." Derek frowned. "Maybe it's just a trade deal or something." "That's what I thought at first," Lisa said. "But then I cracked one of their message headers. Just the header, not the full message. Want to know what the subject line said? Tell me." "The human problem." Derek felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Show me what you found." Lisa pulled up files on her datapad. "It's all fragments, pieces of conversations. But what I'm seeing suggests they're forming some kind of coalition. The 3 species are working together and they're all focused on us. On humanity. Why? What did we do?" "We exist," Lisa said quietly. "We've been expanding into space for 200 years, Captain." 200 years. Most species take thousands of years to spread as far as we have. We build colonies fast, we trade aggressively, and we don't follow the same rules everyone else does. Derek stood and paced his small office. "We follow our own rules. We have laws, ethics, a government. But we don't follow their rules," Lisa said. "The galaxy has protocols that have been in place for millions of years. Old agreements between the elder species. Humans came along and just ignored most of them. We're unpredictable. We make decisions based on emotion and instinct. Like when you rescued Kreshtar's ship. Other species don't do that. They follow procedure, they respect boundaries. So they're having meetings about us. That doesn't mean they're planning anything." "Captain," Lisa said, and her voice was hard now, "I think they're planning to isolate us. Maybe worse." Derek sat down heavily. "You really believe that?" "I don't know what to believe. But I think we need to find out more. I need access to better intelligence sources, and Haven Station is the perfect place. There are information brokers here who deal in secrets." "All right," Derek decided. "But be careful. If this coalition knows we're investigating them, things could get bad fast." Lisa left and Derek sat alone in his office. He thought about Kreshitar's warning before they parted ways. The Zinthara commander had said there were others in his government who feared humans. Was this the result of that fear? Over the next 2 days, Lisa worked her contacts on Haven Station. She met with information brokers in dark corners of the station's lower levels. She paid for access to encrypted channels and bribed security personnel for access to restricted communication logs. Meanwhile, Jake was having his own interesting experience. He was at a bar in one of the station's entertainment districts when he overheard a conversation between 2 Vren merchants. The Vren were insect-like creatures with multiple arms and compound eyes. They spoke in clicks and whistles, but Jake's translator handled it. "The gates will be destroyed within the month," one Vren was saying. "Once the human jump gates are gone, they'll be trapped in their own little corner of space. Is that really necessary?" The other Vren asked. "They're annoying, yes, but dangerous. The Coalition thinks so. Better to cage them now before they spread further." Jake's blood ran cold. He pretended to focus on his drink, but he was recording every word. When the Vren left, he rushed back to the ship. At the same time, Paul was in the station's engineering district shopping for parts. He ran into someone he never expected to see. It was a luminari, a being made of pure energy contained in a specialized environmental suit. The luminari rarely interacted with other species. "You are the human who saved the Zinthara vessel," the luminari said. Its voice was strange, like music and mathematics combined. "That's right," Paul said carefully. "How did you know?" "I am called Velshara. Information travels fast among my kind. What you did was interesting. Illogical, but interesting." "Illogical? We saved lives. You risked your own life for beings you had never met. Beings from a species that considers you an enemy. That is not logical behavior." Paul shrugged. "Maybe not. But it felt right." Velshara was quiet for a moment, its energy form swirling inside its suit.
"I wonder if my people understand humans at all."
"We see you as chaotic, unpredictable, but perhaps that unpredictability comes from something else. Something we lack. Like what?" "Heart," Velshara said simply. Then it drifted away, leaving Paul standing there confused. By the end of the second day, Lisa had enough information to make her case. She gathered Derek, Paul, Jake, and Karen in the ship's conference room and laid out everything she had found. "Here's what we know," Lisa said, putting images and documents up on the wall screen. "The Zinthara, Vren, and Luminari have formed a coalition. Their stated purpose is to maintain galactic stability, but their real goal is to contain humanity." "How?" Karen asked. She had been quiet through most of the briefing, but now her face was pale. "They plan to destroy the hyperspace jump gates that connect human space to the rest of the galaxy," Lisa said. "Without those gates, we're stuck. We can't expand, we can't trade effectively, we can't even explore new systems. They'll have us trapped in maybe 20 star systems total." "That's insane," Paul said. "Destroying jump gates? That's an act of war." "Not if they make it look like accidents," Lisa replied. "They're planning to sabotage the gates to make them overload. It'll look like human technology failed. They'll offer to rebuild them, but only if humanity agrees to new treaties. Treaties that will limit everything we do." Derek felt anger building in his chest. "When?" "Soon. Within the next few weeks, based on what Jake overheard." Jake nodded. "They're definitely moving on this, Captain. I heard them talking about it like it was already decided." "We need to warn Earth Command," Karen said. "They need to know what's coming." "And if we warn them?" Derek asked. "What happens then?" "Earth sends a battle fleet? We start a war we can't win. Humanity is the youngest species out here. We're outnumbered and outgunned by everyone." The room fell silent. They all knew he was right. In a straight fight, humanity would lose. "There has to be another way," Paul said. "Something that doesn't involve shooting." "I'm open to suggestions," Derek said. They talked for hours, throwing out ideas and discarding them. Military options wouldn't work. Political protests would be ignored. They needed something else, something unexpected. Then Karen said something that made everyone stop. "What if we remind them why humans are worth having around?" "What do you mean?" Derek asked. Karen stood and walked to the wall screen. She pulled up images of Haven Station, focusing on the lower levels. "I've been exploring the station while we've been here. The lower levels are a mess. Poor maintenance, overcrowding, and there's sickness spreading. Some kind of plague that affects multiple species." "So?" Jake asked. "So the coalition governments know about it." "I checked the medical reports. They know, and they're not doing anything. The people down there are mostly poor, mostly refugees from border conflicts. The governments don't care about them." "You think we should help them," Derek said slowly. "I think we should show the galaxy who humans really are," Karen replied. "Not the reckless, dangerous species the coalition is afraid of. The humans who help people in trouble. The humans who cross boundaries to save lives." Lisa frowned. "That's a big risk. If we help, we're interfering again. We're proving their point that we don't respect boundaries. Or we're proving a different point," Derek said, understanding what Karen meant. "We're proving that some things are more important than boundaries." Paul was nodding. "I like it." We turned the Aurora's Dawn into a medical ship. 3 weeks passed, and the medical crisis on Haven Station grew worse before it got better. The plague was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. The lower levels of the station were becoming quarantine zones, sealed off from the rest of the population. Thousands of sick people were trapped down there, forgotten by their own governments. But they were not forgotten by the crew of the Aurora's Dawn. Karen barely recognized herself in the mirror anymore. Her eyes had dark circles under them, and she had lost weight. She couldn't remember the last time she had slept more than 3 hours. But every time she thought about resting, she would hear the sound of someone coughing in the medical bay, or a child crying for their parents, and she would go back to work. She was learning things about alien biology that no human had ever known. The Vren's respiratory system was completely different from anything she had studied. The luminary's energy forms responded to treatments in ways that made no sense according to human physics, and the Zinthara's immune system was both stronger and more vulnerable than she had imagined. But the strangest thing she was learning was how similar all species were when they were afraid. Fear looked the same in Zinthara eyes as it did in human eyes. Pain sounded the same in Vren clicks as it did in human screams. And hope felt the same for everyone when a treatment finally worked. "Dr. Phillip," a voice said behind her. Karen turned to see a young Vren scientist standing nervously in the doorway. The Vren's name was Chkirix, and he had been watching the humans work for days. "Yes?" Karen said. She was tired and her patience was thin. "I am a medical researcher," Chkirix said. His translator made his click sound formal and stiff. "I specialize in viral diseases. I have been observing your methods, and I have some thoughts. May I share them with you?" Karen studied him. The Vren were part of the coalition that wanted to isolate humanity. But this one looked genuine. "Go ahead." Chkirix moved closer, his multiple arms gesturing excitedly. "You are treating each species separately, yes? Different medicines for different biologies. But I think this plague is adapting. It changes itself to attack whatever host it finds. That's why it spreads so easily between species." "I came to the same conclusion yesterday," Karen said. "But if you're right, then treating symptoms won't stop it. We need to find the source, the original form of the virus before it started adapting." "Exactly," Chkirix agreed. "And I think I know where to find it. There was an outbreak on a cargo ship 3 months ago. The ship's medical records should still exist. If we can access them, we might be able to trace the plague back to its origin." Karen felt hope stirring for the first time in days. "Can you get those records?" "Not easily. They are restricted by my government." "But," Chkirix hesitated, his compound eyes reflecting the medical bay lights. "I believe this is more important than politics. I will try." Chkirix left and Karen went to find Derek. She found him in one of the lower-level corridors helping Paul set up water purification systems. The captain was covered in sweat and grime, looking nothing like the clean, composed officer who had docked at Haven Station 3 weeks ago. "Captain, I think we might have a breakthrough," Karen said. She explained what Chkirix had told her. Derek wiped his forehead. "A Vren is helping us? Even though his government is part of the coalition against us?" "He says science is more important than politics." "Let's hope his government sees it that way," Derek said. "Do whatever you need to do. If we can stop this plague, maybe we can show the coalition that working together is better than pushing us apart." Over the next week, Chkirix worked with Karen to access the restricted medical records. It wasn't easy. He had to call in favors, bypass security protocols, and eventually hack into systems that could get him arrested. But he did it, because he had seen humans working themselves to death to save people who weren't even their own species. Meanwhile, Paul was having his own strange encounter. He was repairing a power conduit in one of the quarantine zones when Velshara appeared again. The luminary's energy form glowed softly in the darkness. "You are still here," Velshara said. "Still helping." "Of course," Paul replied. "The job's not done. 2 of your crew died. Yet you continue. Why?" Paul sat back and looked at the luminary. "Because Pete and Amy would want us to continue. They didn't die for nothing. They died doing something important." "Your species fascinates me," Velshara said. "You feel emotions so strongly. Love, anger, grief, hope. My people evolved beyond such things millions of years ago. We thought we were better for it. We thought emotions made species weak, and now?" Paul asked. "Now I wonder if we lost something important when we stopped feeling," Velshara admitted. "I have been observing you humans. You make decisions that seem illogical. You take risks that seem foolish. But you also do things that no other species would attempt. You try to save everyone even when it seems impossible." "That's just who we are," Paul said with a shrug. Velshara was quiet for a long moment. "My people are part of the coalition. We agreed that humanity needs to be contained. But I am beginning to think we were wrong. A species that fights this hard to save others is not a species to fear." "Will you tell your government that?" Paul asked. "I do not know," Velshara said honestly. "To speak against the coalition would cost me my position, my status, everything I have worked for. Then I guess you have to decide what's more important, Paul said. Your position or doing what's right. Velshara drifted away without answering, but Paul could tell the luminary was thinking hard about their conversation. Karen and Chikrix finally found what they were looking for. The medical records showed that the plague had originated from a planet called Threshcore, a world in the remote outer territories. A research station there had been studying ancient viruses preserved in ice. One of those viruses had escaped. This is it, Karen said excitedly. This is the original form. If we can create a treatment for this version, it should work on all the adapted forms too. But creating that treatment will require resources we don't have, Chikrix said. Specialized equipment, rare chemical compounds, advanced laboratory facilities. Then we'll get them, Karen said firmly. Even if I have to steal them. She didn't have to steal anything. Word of what the humans were doing had spread throughout Haven Station. When Karen put out a request for medical supplies and equipment, donations started arriving from unexpected sources. Zinthera merchants provided chemical compounds. Vren scientists sent laboratory equipment. Even some Luminari offered their knowledge of energy-based medicine. The coalition governments were losing control of the narrative. They had painted humans as dangerous and unpredictable. But what people were seeing on Haven Station was something different. They saw humans dying to save aliens. They saw humans working without sleep, without pay, without any hope of reward. They saw humans being human at their best. Lisa was watching all of this from the Aurora's Dawn's bridge. She was still monitoring coalition communications, and what she was seeing worried her. The coalition leadership was getting nervous. Their plan to destroy the jump gates was still moving forward, but now there was internal dissent. Some members were questioning whether isolating humanity was really the right choice. Captain, you need to see this. Lisa called. Derek came to the bridge. He looked exhausted, barely able to stand. What is it? The coalition is fracturing. Some members want to delay the plan. Others want to accelerate it before public opinion turns completely against them. There's going to be a meeting on Concordia Prime in 2 weeks. Some kind of emergency session of the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council? They haven't met in 50 years. They're meeting now, Lisa said. And they're meeting to discuss humanity. Captain, this is it. This is our chance to change their minds. Derek thought about the thousands of sick people in the lower levels. Thought about Pete and Amy's graves. Thought about Kreshtar, Chikrix, and Velshara, aliens who had chosen to help humans despite the political cost. We can't leave yet, Derek said. Not until we stop this plague. Captain, this meeting could determine humanity's entire future. And these people's lives matter too, Derek said firmly. We stay until the job is done. Lisa wanted to argue, but she could see the determination in Derek's eyes. This was who he was. This was who they all were. They didn't abandon people who needed help, even if it cost them everything. Karen worked day and night with Chikrix to develop a cure. It was slow, frustrating work. Every time they thought they had a solution, the plague would adapt to counter it. But they kept trying, kept experimenting, kept pushing forward. On the 10th day, they had a breakthrough. Karen was testing a combination of human antiviral medicine and Vren immune boosters when something clicked. The virus stopped replicating. It died, we did it, Karen whispered. Then louder, we did it. Chikrix, we found it. The Vren scientist did something Karen had never seen a Vren do. He danced, all his arms waving in celebration. Then he caught himself and tried to look professional again. Yes, we should begin mass production immediately. They had the cure, but producing enough for thousands of patients was another challenge. The Aurora's Dawn's medical facilities weren't designed for mass production. They needed help. That help came from an unexpected source. Velshara appeared in the ME. Concordia Prime was the most beautiful planet Derek had ever seen. 3 moons hung in a purple sky, and the cities below glowed with light from 1,000 different technologies. This was neutral ground, a world that belonged to no single species but to all of them. It was the perfect place for the Galactic Council to meet. The Aurora's Dawn landed at the main spaceport, and Derek stepped off the ship feeling like he was walking to his own execution. He wore his best uniform, but it felt too tight. He had lost weight during the 3 weeks on Haven Station, and the uniform hung loose on his frame. You don't have to do this alone, Lisa said beside him. She wore her dress uniform too, looking sharp and professional. We're all going with you. Derek looked at his crew. Paul, Karen, Jake, all of them ready to stand beside him. Even Chkrix had come, risking anger from his own government. Belshara floated nearby, its energy form dimmer than usual as if it was nervous. And Kreshtar stood tall, no longer wearing his military uniform but simple clothes. "Thank you," Derek said. "All of you." They walked together through the spaceport and took a transport to the council chamber. The building was massive, a dome that seemed to touch the sky. Inside, representatives from 47 different species waited. This was the most important gathering in galactic history, and everyone knew it. Derek and his crew were taken to a waiting room. A council aide, a small creature with 4 arms and gray skin, explained the procedure. "You will be called before the council. The coalition will present their case first. Then you will be allowed to speak. The council will deliberate and make their decision." "How long do I have to speak?" Derek asked. "As long as the council allows," the aide said. "But I would suggest being brief. Council members do not appreciate long speeches." The aide left, and Derek sat down heavily. His hands were shaking. He was a ship captain, not a politician. He didn't know how to give speeches or convince powerful people. He just knew how to do his job and help people who needed help. "What am I going to say?" Derek asked quietly. "The truth," Karen said. "Just tell them the truth." Hours passed. Derek and his crew waited in that small room, listening to the muffled sounds of voices from the council chamber. Finally, the aide returned. "They are ready for you, Captain Stone." Derek stood up. His legs felt weak. Lisa squeezed his shoulder and he nodded at her. Then he walked through the door into the council chamber. It was overwhelming. The chamber was circular, with seating that rose up like an amphitheater. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated areas. Zinthara, Vren, Luminari, and countless others Derek didn't even recognize. At the center of the chamber was a small platform where Derek was supposed to stand. He walked to that platform and looked up at all those alien faces staring down at him. He had never felt smaller in his life. A voice echoed through the chamber. "This emergency session of the Galactic Council is convened to address the matter of humanity's place in the galactic community. The Coalition has requested that strict limitations be placed on human expansion and activity. Captain Derek Stone of the human vessel Aurora's Dawn has been called to provide testimony, but first the Coalition will present their case." A Zinthara in elaborate robes stood up. Derek recognized him from Lisa's intelligence reports. This was High Chancellor Mevrath, one of the most powerful Zinthara officials and a leader of the Coalition. "Honored council members," Mevrath began, his voice smooth and confident. "We gathered today because of a threat. Not a military threat, but something more insidious. The threat of chaos." Mevrath began walking around the chamber and images appeared on screens above Derek's head. Images of human colonies spreading across space. Images of human ships ignoring border markers. Images of conflicts between humans and other species. "Humanity has been active in space for only 2 centuries, Mevrath continued. "Yet in that short time, they have caused more disruption than most species cause in 10,000 years. They expand without permission. They trade without following established protocols. They arm their vessels in violation of peace treaties. And most dangerous of all, they make decisions based on emotion rather than logic." Mevrath gestured and a new image appeared. It was Derek's own ship, the Aurora's Dawn, approaching the damaged Zinthara vessel from weeks ago. This human captain violated our territorial boundaries to interfere with a Zinthara military matter. He did not ask permission. He did not follow proper diplomatic channels. He simply acted based on his emotional response to a situation he did not understand. Derek felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay quiet. This wasn't his turn yet. "The recent incident on Haven Station further proves our point," Mevrath said. "Humans took it upon themselves to handle a medical crisis without coordinating with proper authorities. They exposed themselves to dangerous diseases. They recruited citizens from other species to help with their reckless plans. 2 humans died due to their own poor judgment. Is this the kind of species we want active in our galaxy? Species who cannot control themselves? Who act first and think later?" Mevrath turned to face Derek directly. "Humans are like children, dangerous children with powerful toys. For the safety of the entire galaxy, they must be contained until they learn to follow the rules that govern civilized species." The High Chancellor sat down, and murmurs spread through the council chamber. Derek could see some council members nodding in agreement. The voice echoed again. "Captain Derek Stone, you may now present your defense." Derek stepped forward to the center of the platform. He looked up at all those faces, all those species, all judging humanity based on his words. His mind went blank. Everything he had planned to say disappeared. Then he thought about Pete and Amy. He thought about the sick people on Haven Station. He thought about Kreshtar's words about having compassion. And he knew what to say. High Chancellor Mevrath is right, Derek began. His voice was steady now. We did violate Zinthara territory. We did interfere on Haven Station without permission. We do make decisions based on emotion. He could see confusion on some of the council members' faces. This wasn't the defense they expected. But let me tell you why we did those things, Derek continued. When we found Commander Kreshtar's ship, we had a choice. Follow the rules and let 23 people die, or break the rules and save them. We chose to save them. When we saw sick people dying on Haven Station because their own governments had abandoned them, we had a choice. Follow protocol and watch them die, or break protocol and help them. We chose to help them. Derek pulled out a small device and activated it. Images appeared on the screens above him, replacing Mevrath's propaganda. Images of the Aurora's Dawn's crew working in the medical bay. Images of sick children being cured. Images of aliens from different species working together. You say we're dangerous because we're emotional. I say our emotions are what make us valuable. We don't just see problems to solve. We see people who need help. Every single person matters to us, no matter what species they are, no matter where they come from. He changed the images to show Pete and Amy, both smiling in photos taken before they died. These are Pete Sullivan and Amy Chen. They died on Haven Station. They went into a contaminated area knowing it was dangerous. They could have stayed safe. They could have followed the rules that said it wasn't their responsibility, but they went anyway because people needed help. They gave their lives saving aliens they had never met. Derek's voice grew stronger. High Chancellor Mevrath says we need to be contained until we learn to follow rules. But what if your rules are wrong? What if following your rules means watching innocent people die? What if the rules value order more than life? He looked directly at Mevrath. You say we're like children? Maybe you're right. Children ask why. Children question authority. Children believe that things can be better than they are. If that's what being a child means, then yes, we're children, and we're proud of it. Derek turned back to the council. Every human is taught from childhood to think for themselves, to question, to stand up for what's right even when it's hard. You call that chaos. We call it conscience. We call it freedom. We call it being human. The chamber was completely silent now. Every eye was on Derek. You want to contain us because we're unpredictable, because we might break your rules. And you're right, we will break your rules. Every single time those rules tell us to abandon people who need help. Every time those rules say that order is more important than compassion. Every time those rules put politics ahead of what's right. Derek's voice dropped lower, became more intense. But here's what I want you to understand. We didn't help on Haven Station to make you like us. We didn't save Commander Kreshtar's crew to score political points. We did those things because that's who we are. If you cage us, if you isolate us, we'll still be who we are. You can't change that with treaties or laws or limitations. He gestured to the screens showing the faces of everyone they had saved. These are the names and faces of every life we saved on Haven Station. Zinthara children, Vran elders, Luminari who were dying, over 6,000 individuals from 17 different species. Which of your laws is more important than these lives? Which of your protocols is worth? 3 months had passed since the council meeting on Concordia Prime, and everything had changed. The Aurora's Dawn was no longer just an exploration vessel. It was a symbol of something bigger, a bridge between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Derek stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the diverse crew before him. It wasn't just humans anymore. Chekrix was at one of the science stations, his multiple Vren arms working across several control panels at once. At Communications, Jake was training a young Luminari named Shornell in human protocols. Even Kreshtar was there, standing beside Lisa at the tactical station, learning human military procedures. Captain, we're receiving a signal from Earth Command, Jake called out. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you. Derek nodded and took the communication in his ready room. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. Captain Stone, the Admiral said, I've been reviewing your reports. What you accomplished at Concordia Prime has changed everything for humanity. The Council has approved Earth's request to establish formal diplomatic relations with 15 species. We're opening trade negotiations with 8 more. None of this would have happened without you. It wasn't just me, Admiral, Derek said. It was my whole crew. And our allies from other species. I know, the Admiral replied. That's actually why I'm calling. The Council has approved a new program. They want you to train mixed species crews. Teach them what you call the human protocol. Show them how to work together the way your crew does. Derek thought about that. You want me to become a teacher? I want you to do what you do best, the Admiral said. Bring people together. The galaxy is watching us now, Captain. We need to prove that we're worth the faith they're putting in us. After the call ended, Derek gathered his crew in the mess hall. He told them about the Admiral's request and he watched their reactions carefully. So we're becoming a training ship? Paul asked. He didn't sound unhappy about it, just curious. More than that, Derek said. We're proving that different species can work together, that the barriers between us aren't as strong as everyone thinks. I think it's a good idea, Karen said. She had been different since Haven Station. Quieter, more thoughtful. Losing Pete and Amy had changed her. We have something to teach. We might as well teach it. Over the next few weeks, the Aurora's Dawn began its new mission. They accepted crew members from different species, all volunteers who wanted to learn the human way of doing things. Some came because they were curious. Others came because they believed in what humans represented, and some came because they had nowhere else to go. One of the new arrivals was a young Zinthara named Skelmar. He was barely 20 years old, and he came aboard nervous and uncertain. Derek assigned him to work with Paul in engineering. I don't understand humans, Skelmar admitted to Paul on his first day. My instructors always said you were chaotic and dangerous. But you saved Commander Kreshitar. You saved all those people on Haven Station. Why? Paul looked up from the engine he was repairing. You really want to know? Yes, because it was the right thing to do, Paul said simply. That's really all there is to it. We saw people who needed help and we helped them, but you risked your lives. You gained nothing from it. We gained plenty, Paul said. We gained friends. We gained respect. We gained the satisfaction of knowing we made a difference. Those things matter more than safety or profit. Skelmar thought about that while he worked. Over the following weeks, he watched how the human crew operated. They didn't follow strict hierarchies the way Zinthara did. Derek gave orders, but he also listened to suggestions from everyone, even the lowest-ranked crew member. People argued sometimes, but it was always about ideas, never personal. And everyone worked together, helping each other without being ordered to. One day, there was an emergency. A coolant leak in the engine room that could have become dangerous. Paul was off the ship, so Skelmar was the senior engineer present. He froze, uncertain what to do. His Zinthara training said to follow procedure, file a report, wait for orders. But then he remembered what Paul had taught him. Don't wait for permission. If something needs to be done, do it. Skelmar sealed the leak himself, coordinating with other crew members to make the repair. When Paul returned and heard what happened, he clapped Skelmar on the shoulder. That's the human way, Paul said with a grin. You saw a problem and you fixed it. You didn't wait for someone to tell you what to do. But I could have been wrong, Skelmar said. I could have made it worse. But you didn't, Paul replied. You trusted yourself. That's what we're trying to teach. Trust yourself. Trust your judgment. Trust your heart. Similar lessons were happening all over the ship. Jake was teaching communication not just as translation, but as understanding. Karen was showing alien medical students that medicine wasn't just science, it was compassion. Lisa was demonstrating that tactics weren't just about winning, but about protecting people. And Derek was teaching leadership by example. He didn't tell people what to do as much as he showed them why things mattered. He treated every crew member with respect, regardless of their species or rank. He made decisions quickly but always explained his reasoning. And he never asked anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. Not everyone adapted easily to the human way. A Vren named Crixtel struggled with the concept of individual initiative. Her species thought collectively, making decisions as a group. The idea of acting alone seemed wrong to her. How do you know if you're making the right choice? Crixtel asked Derek one day. If you don't consult with others, how do you know you're not making a mistake? You don't always know, Derek admitted. Sometimes you make mistakes, but the alternative is paralysis. If you wait for perfect information or complete consensus, people might die while you're still deciding what to do. That seems reckless. It is reckless, Derek agreed. But sometimes reckless action is better than careful inaction. You have to find the balance. Crixtel thought about that. Then she asked, what happens when someone makes a bad decision? Are they punished? That depends, Derek said. Did they make the decision in good faith? Were they trying to do the right thing? If so, then no, they're not punished. We learn from the mistake and move on. The only time someone gets punished is if they act selfishly or maliciously. This was a radical idea for many species. Most cultures punished failure regardless of intent. But humans believed in learning from mistakes and giving people chances to grow and improve. The Aurora's Dawn's reputation continued to grow. Other ships started requesting human crew members. Colonies asked for human advisors. Even species that had been part of the coalition began to change their attitudes toward humanity. But not everyone was happy about these changes. There were still those who believed humans were dangerous, who thought the old ways were better. High Chancellor Mevrath was one of them. 6 months after the council meeting, Derek received a message. Mevrath wanted to meet with him privately. Derek was suspicious, but he agreed. They met on a neutral station, in a small conference room with guards from multiple species watching. Mevrath looked older than Derek remembered. The Zenthara leader seemed tired, defeated. Captain Stone, Mevrath said, I wanted to speak with you before I retire from public life. Retire? Derek asked. My political career is over, Mevrath said. The coalition I built has collapsed. My own government has disavowed the policies I championed. All because of you and your crew. Derek didn't know what to say. He had expected anger, maybe threats. Not this resigned sadness. I wanted to tell you that I was wrong, Mevrath continued. Not about everything. Humans are still chaotic and unpredictable, but I was wrong to think that was something to fear. I was wrong to try to cage your species. Why are you telling me this? Derek asked. Because you deserve to know, Mevrath said. And because I want to warn you. Your way is spreading, Captain. More and more species are adopting human ideas about individual freedom and moral responsibility. The old order is crumbling. That's a good thing, but it's also dangerous. Change always brings conflict. There will be those who fight against this, who want things to go back to the way they were. Are you one of those people? Derek asked carefully. Mevrath smiled sadly. No, I'm too old and too tired to fight anymore. But others will fight. Be ready for that. The two leaders parted ways and Derek returned to his ship. He thought about Mevrath's warning. Change did bring conflict. The question was whether they could manage that change peacefully, or whether it would lead to violence. A year after the council meeting, Derek received another summons to Concordia Prime. This time it wasn't a trial. It was a celebration. The Galactic Council was officially recognizing humanity as full members of the galactic community. Derek stood before the council once again, but this time he wasn't alone. With him were Paul, Lisa, Karen, Jake, Chikorix, Velshara, Kreshitar, and dozens of other crew members from various species who had trained aboard the Aurora's Dawn. The council leader spoke. 1 year ago, we debated whether humanity should be contained. Today, we celebrate humanity's integration into our community. In 1 year, humans have established peaceful relations with 23 species. They have shared their technology freely. They